You think you have it all, a home, a family, a life that should bring you joy. But one day, you realize it's all just quiet, the kind of silence that creeps in when passion fades and routine settles in. The silence that makes you question if you've truly been living or just existing. The house was quiet again, the kind of silence that fills every corner and stretches into every room. I sat in the living room, flipping through an old photo album, wondering when everything started to feel off. I paused at a photo of Mark and me, smiling under the bright sun during our honeymoon. We looked so in love, so certain. But looking at it now, I couldn't remember the last time we truly laughed together or shared something that wasn't about the kids or the bills. Mark wasn't a bad husband. He was dependable, steady. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like his partner, his wife. I started feeling more like a caretaker, someone who took care of everything in between. I wasn't even sure when it happened, but I could feel it now, heavy in the air. And just like that, the emptiness between us became louder than any conversation. But it wasn't just him I was losing touch with. It was me, the woman I used to be before the routines took over. And now here I was, waiting for a message from him that would never come. But what happens when that silence is broken? When someone new walks into your life, and suddenly everything feels different. Jamie's knock on the door was unexpected, but somehow felt like a disruption I needed. When I opened it, there he was. Jamie, Mark's younger cousin, with that easy smile of his. He needed to drop off work documents for Mark. Simple, but the timing felt too perfect. As soon as he stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. His presence filled the space in a way I hadn't realized was missing. Mark's absence, usually a heavy weight, suddenly felt lighter. I noticed how Jamie's carefree, spontaneous spirit made everything else seem small. Jamie wasn't just filling the silence, he was inviting me into it. It wasn't just his smile that caught my attention. It was how he saw me, not just as the wife, not just as the mother, but as someone else. He asked me about my travels. The places I'd been before life had settled into its predictable patterns. For the first time in ages, someone cared to ask. I felt an undeniable pull to him, a connection I couldn't explain. It was more than just flirtation. It was a reminder of the woman I used to be, the woman I had forgotten. But what happens when the person who makes you feel alive also makes you feel something else, something dangerous? It wasn't supposed to happen. He was family, just a young cousin of Mark's, someone I had known for years. He was a reminder of a life I thought I could never have again. But as the days went by, the unspoken tension between us became harder to ignore. The way Jamie's eyes lingered a little too long when he spoke to me, the way his smile seemed to be more than just friendly, the way he made me feel like I mattered again, like I was more than just a housewife, more than just a mother. It started with the smallest things, a casual comment about my favorite book, followed by a look that seemed to go deeper than the words we exchanged. A gentle touch on the arm as he handed me a drink. I couldn't dismiss it as nothing. I knew something was changing, and with each passing day, it became harder to resist. Then came the invitation. "There's an art show in town this weekend," Jamie said casually. "I'm still new here and don't know anyone. You should come with me." I hesitated. My first instinct was to refuse, to stay in the comfortable routine I'd spent years building with Mark. But something about the way Jamie asked made me say yes. Without thinking, without second-guessing. The night of the art show, I found myself walking beside him, our conversation flowing effortlessly. But beneath the casual words, there was something electric and undeniable pull. After the show, we ended up at a small cafe, and for the first time in ages, I opened up to him in a way I hadn't in years. When he listened, I realized how starved I had been for someone to truly hear me. It was dangerous. I knew it. This conversation, this connection, was crossing lines I should never have crossed. But I couldn't help myself. I couldn't stop the words, the feelings, the pull between us. And then he said something that made everything inside me tremble. "You're different, Sophie. You make me want to be a better person." The weight of his words hung in the air, and I felt the magnetic force between us grow stronger. His gaze didn't leave mine, and for a moment nothing else mattered. Not the fact that he was family, not the fact that I was married, just the fact that in that moment I felt alive again. But life wasn't so simple, and no matter how much I wanted to be lost in this moment with him, I couldn't. I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't undo. I wanted to feel the freedom, the excitement, the newness of this connection. But I knew better. The consequences would be too much to bear. As the door creaked open, I felt my heart drop to my stomach. Mark stood there, frozen, his eyes flicking between Jamie and me. The air in the room was thick, suffocating. My heart pounded, the weight of my guilt anchoring me to the spot. We pulled away, our faces flushed with shame. In that silence, the reality hit me. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my marriage, was about to be shattered. It was over. After Mark left, I was left alone, trembling in the aftermath. Jamie left quickly. We didn't speak, and in the silence, I found clarity. It wasn't just about Jamie. It was about me. I had lost myself in the chaos of my roles, buried beneath the weight of being a wife and mother. I needed to decide. Could I rebuild my life with Mark, or was it time to start fresh on my own terms? Sitting across from Mark that night, the tension was palpable. I spoke first, my voice shaking but determined. "I'm sorry, Mark. I've been distant, and I haven't been honest with you. I can't pretend anymore." Mark sat quietly. Finally he spoke, his voice calm. "I know, Sophie. I felt it too. Maybe it's time to step back, to figure out who we are without each other. I don't know what the future holds," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "But I know I need to take control of my life. I can't keep pretending anymore." I started to change. For the first time in years, I began focusing on myself. I enrolled in art classes, rediscovered my passion for painting, and began to feel alive again. I wasn't just a wife. I wasn't just a mother. I was me again. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the woman I had become. I saw someone new, a woman on the brink of something bigger, something better. I smiled at my reflection. For the first time in a long time, I was embracing the version of myself I had forgotten. The hardest part of change is admitting you're ready for it. But when you take that first step, there's nothing more freeing. The conversation had shifted from trivial chatter to something deeper, more intimate. But then, without warning, Jamie leaned in to adjust my chair. His hand brushed lightly against mine. Just a touch, a fleeting moment. But it lingered, like an electric pulse, a spark that made my skin tingle long after he pulled away. It was as if the world around us slowed down, everything else fading into the background. I met his gaze, and for a moment, neither of us looked away. That was when I felt it. The weight of everything unsaid, everything that had been building up between us. My heart skipped a beat, the sudden rush of heat spreading through me, and before I knew it, I was breathless. The air in the room had shifted, thickened, as if we were both holding our breath. The tension was palpable, undeniable. I felt guilty, confused, overwhelmed with desire all at once. It wasn't supposed to happen, but there it was. My heart screamed at me to stop, to get up and walk away, to remind myself that this was wrong. But my body was telling me something different. It wanted more. I stood up quickly, hoping to break the spell, trying to distance myself from him, from everything. But Jamie followed, his presence close behind me, like a shadow I couldn't escape. I told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting emotion, a moment of weakness. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. The chemistry between us was undeniable, and I felt it in every inch of my body, pulling me toward him like gravity. I could feel my resolve starting to crumble. Then, later that night, there we were again, alone in the living room, the silence between us hanging like a storm waiting to break. The tension was unbearable. Every glance, every movement seemed loaded with meaning. "Sophie," he said, his voice low and full of intent, like he was speaking straight to the part of me I'd buried for so long. Does it feel like it's just us right now? Like nothing else matters? I wanted to scream that it wasn't true, that I had a life with Mark, that this feeling was a betrayal. But when I looked at Jamie, all I could feel was the truth. The truth I had been denying for so long. For the first time in ages, I felt seen. I felt noticed. And as he took a step closer, I knew I couldn't hide from it anymore. The pull between us was magnetic, consuming. I tried to fight it, but my body betrayed me. I leaned in. Our lips met. Tentative at first, like a question asked with no answer, but it quickly deepened. It ignited something inside me, a flame that burned away the doubts, the guilt, the confusion. For a moment, I forgot everything. I forgot about Mark. I forgot about the life I was supposed to lead. All I could think about was the fire that was burning between us. And then, just as quickly as it had started, a noise from a hallway shattered the moment. A door creaked open. My heart skipped a beat as I pulled away from Jamie, the reality crashing down around me. We both froze, like two criminals caught in the act. The air went cold again, and I could hear the sound of my own pulse, louder than the footsteps in the hallway. This wasn't just a moment. It was a breaking point. And the worst part, I didn't know if I could ever go back. Have you ever been at a crossroads like Sophie, where everything you thought you knew about your life changed in an instant? What would you do if you realized you had lost touch with who you really are? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of transformation and tough choices. You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay tuned!